Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and today for Poetry Thursday, I'm going to be talking about the Penguin Book of Modern African Poetry. So I read this book as a precursor to get prepared for the Reading Africa 2022 Reading Challenge that has been organized by Mark over at Book Time with Elvis, in which we are using the Africa Cup of Nations soccer tournament, which begins in mid-January, as an opportunity to read books by and from, about and from Africa. The country that I was assigned is the Ivory Coast. So I'll be reading quite soon this book here because I'll late my homework. But as a run up to that, I wanted to read some African poetry. So I had previously read, up here you can see Poems from Black Africa, which I made a video about last week. And this week, I finished this one, so I figured I'd do something similar, read some selections from here, and talk about it overall. And this is the 4th edition, which was published in the late 90s. So all the poems in here are all from the 20th century. There are no 21st century poems in here, unfortunately. It would have been nice to have something a little more recent. And it's a very wide selection, though, of countries. We've got, Benin, Botswana, Cameroon, Cape Verde Islands, Senegal, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Lots of examples throughout here, which is great, but it's also ends up being, I think, one of the frustrations of the read is because there were so many poems for which I had very little to no context about what it was that I was reading about. Sometimes this volume does a pretty good job of translating words, if there is an African word put into the poem, but sometimes it doesn't do that. So there's whole parts of the poem that I'm not quite getting. It's either the vocabulary or they're naming something from that country that I just don't know what it is. And sometimes they're referencing things like conflicts or wars or imprisonment that I just don't really have any kind of historical context for. So sometimes I felt like I was, swimming a little bit as far as what they were trying to get at. Many poems, I think, predictably, are, deal with post-colonialism, the oppression of the past, Africa kind of, you see themes of Africa rising, almost like a phoenix in a certain way, entering the modern world. We also see poems of frustration about civil unrest and corrupt governments and things like that, and certainly wars, civil wars, and all of that. And there are some that are just, commentary on humanity, and some on nature, and there's varying qualities of poems, for me at least, in here. The editor of this, there's Gerald Moore and Uli Bayer. I'm not sure if I'm saying that name entirely correctly. Uli Bayer also translated a lot of poems from the Poems from Black Africa that had been edited by Langston Hughes. They do seem to prefer, and I don't know if this is just the way that African poets tend to write or if it's a preference of the editor, a lot of free verse. So there are some poems that are just very long free verse poems, and I have a mixed reaction sometimes with very lengthy free verse. They're all fine. There's no bad poems in here necessarily, but some of them were a little bit like, yeah, I get it. Or they get to the end, it's a very obvious ending. But there are certainly some poems in here that stood out to me. And they might not be the poems that stand out to you, to any reader. But they're the ones that stuck out to me. And I figured I'd share a couple of them, just like I did with the past book. So without further ado, I'll go through some of those. So this first one that I'm going to read is from Gambia. It is by Lenry Peters. And it's called Isatu Died. I'm not going to go through too much analysis in these poems. I'll just kind of read them. You can, make your own interpretations. A lot of the ones that really stuck out to me, though, had to deal with certain criticisms on apathy in society. So you might see a theme like that running through the ones that at least I connected to. So again, this is Isatu Died by Lenry Peters from Gambia. Asatu died when she was only 5, and full of pride, just before she knew how small a loss it brought to such a few. Her mother wept, half grateful to be so early bereft, and did not see the smile, as tender as the root of the emerging plant which sealed her eyes. The neighbors wailed, as they were paid to do, and thought how big a spread might be her wedding, too. The father looked at her through marble eyes and said, "Who spilt the perfume mixed with the morning dew?" This next one is from Guinea, and it is by Ahmad Tijani Cisse, and I might be mispronouncing that. I'll just show you because I don't know how to pronounce that, but there's the name. And the poem is called Home News, and this is, I think, is one of my favorite poems in the whole collection. My dear son, I am well, thanks be to God. I pray for you day and night. Dear brother, it's my sad duty to announce the death of our beloved mother, which occurred last Sunday after a short illness. My cousin, I've grown a lot. Send me some trousers and new shoes. My love, it's now 10 years I've been waiting for you. What's keeping you there in the white man's land? Think of the trouble you caused us by such long absence. My dear friend, our country's changing into a huge shanty town. No one can eat his fill except send me a tape recorder. My dear son, it is I, your father. I beg you to return to your land. If not, you will not have even the sorrow to recognize my tomb. My dear nephew, I must tell you of your father's death. We all hope you'll be able to attend the 40 days wake. My dear, a tear yesterday when the postman passed, anxiety today in waiting his return. The abyss of sadness envelops me when I have no news from home. My soul shrivels a little when home news tumbles over me. The other day I made a fleeting boat full of home news. I set it in the water at the wharf of exile overseas. I went to attend its arrival at the landing stage of loneliness under hope. My boat landed some secret passengers for me. Next day the postman's prophetic hand was stretched towards me. My dear friend, your brother was arrested last week in reprisal for your political work against the government. Your family is left without a head. Send me a shirt and a necktie. This next poem is from Mozambique by Jorge Rebelo. It is entitled simply Poem. Come, brother, and tell me your life. Come, show me the marks of revolt which the enemy left on your body. Come, say to me, here, my hands have been crushed because they defended a land which they own. Here, my body was tortured because it refused to bend to invaders. Here, my mouth was wounded because it dared to sing my people's freedom. Come, brother, and tell me your life. Come, relate me the dreams of revolt which you and your fathers and forefathers dreamed in silence through the shadowless nights made for love. Come, tell me these dreams become war. The birth of heroes, land reconquered, mothers who, fearless, send their sons to fight. Come, tell me all this, my brother, and later I will forge simple words which even the children can understand, words which will enter every house like the wind and fall like red-hot embers on our people's souls. In our land, bullets are beginning to flower. And this last poem that I'm going to read is from Nigeria by Femi Fatoba, and it is called Those Lucky Few. And again, it's that theme of apathy that we'll see come up again. I am one of those lucky few who have no sense of smell. When the boss demands and sleeps with my wife, let her come home for a bath and put on her best clothes. The promotion party does not smell. When the honorable minister lures my daughter and silences me with a contract award, it is a father's reward and it does not smell. When I take my mother to the medicine man for the money ritual, how do you expect me to remember the smell of an umbilical cord several years ago, or that of the blood that binds when I use my brother's skull for uare soap? I do not smell little children's belch of hunger when I snatch food from them to feed my dog. I'm one of those lucky few who have lost the sense of smell. So those are just some of the selections from this work that stuck out to me. Of course, poetry is largely subjective, so if somebody else read this, I'm sure there were other poems that would have stuck out to them. So just like the last time I had made a video like this, I hope you enjoy. And thank you, BookTube.